From the Center for the Arts studio, welcome to this edition of Eagle's Eye. I'm your host, Katelyn Meeks, and today I am joined by Student Senate Executive President-elect Aidan Nayak. Thank you for joining me today, Aidan.
Thank you for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
So my first question for you is, what does the Executive President of Student Senate do, and why is it important?
Yeah, that's a really great question, I think, because I feel like over the last few weeks there's been kind of a misconception about what that job is. And so I go strictly off of what's outlined in our Student Senate Constitution. And according to that, it says that the Student Senate President essentially presides over Senate. So when it comes to that, we are the representatives. We are the figureheads and the stand-ins for the student body. I'm here to represent the students. So I don't want anyone to have the perception that I'm coming in with like an itemized list of demands or like a personal agenda. This is very much you guys come to me, the student body comes to me, and I'm here to see what I can do to work with the administration to enact that kind of thing. So there are things outside of the Student Senate's power that lies with the administration that I'm here to sort of streamline as that mediator between the student body and them, so that the students feel individually heard and we can create the best student experience possible.
Well, that's actually really interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So my next question for you is kind of more of a policy question. So
Sure.
one of your policy points was you were kind of wanting to expand on student influence and impact on campus.
That's right, yeah.
And as you know, Ashland University is a private institution where the administration could just not listen to students at all or have their input in anything.
Yeah.
So what is your plan to enact this change at AU to really kind of connect the two?
Yeah, and that's always the fear too, that there will be a disconnect between the student body and the higher administration. So when it comes to that, we have individual seats on Senate. We have, and you've been in the meetings before, so you've seen how we do things around there. But we have individual building representatives for each of the halls on campus. We have club representatives. We have class representatives. This last year, I was serving as the junior class president. And in that time, if any of my constituents, the members of the junior class, had problems or concerns, they could send me an email, and I would see what I could do to get that addressed and to figure that out and to make sure that things were okay, and that even if it wasn't one individual person who said, listen, I got a problem with meal plans, or I have a problem with the course catalog, or I need athlete accommodations, that's what we're here for. And that's what I want my student senate to be able to hear those sort of concerns and to honestly maximize the amount of representatives we have serving on Senate, so that each individual group can feel represented, that they can have that voice and that mouthpiece to be able to come and express that for their constituents. So I would say for student involvement, maximizing that student representation, so even people who have the most unique, the most directly tailored to them experience here at AU, they need to feel heard and they need to feel represented.
Okay. That kind of goes into one of my next points. One of your big other points you kind of made during your election was student representation.
Yeah.
So you kind of also mentioned like all clubs, students, and backgrounds. So under your leadership, are you looking to possibly expand Student Senate, like add new positions and seats? And if so, what possibly are they? Yeah,
absolutely. And that's a conversation we still need to have. And you know this, but I don't get sworn until Tuesday. So
yes.
I don't want to jump the gun too much in front of cameras. But at the same time, it is important that the student body knows that for this upcoming Senate, this whole new Senate coming in, this is the opportunity to do something entirely new. It's the opportunity to do something entirely different and to be able to introduce new roles and to have new roles like that. For instance, if there is an individual club, we have people serving for clubs and charters and activities and representatives for those. But if there are individual clubs on campus who say, hey, I'd like a representative from BSA, or I want a representative from this or that club or this team or this club, I want to be able to come on there and to feel heard on Senate, and to be able to voice our concerns genuinely. And that goes beyond just the open invite to Senate on Tuesday nights at 9:30. Shameless plug, but because everyone's always invited.
Yes.
It's public. But we want to prioritize individual students' voices as well as those organizations. So yeah, to answer your question, I really hope we can expand that and we can have more seats introduced on Senate.
Okay. So this is kind of tying into the next point, communication. It's always been kind of this long occurring issue on Student Senate of communicating with the student body.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of plan to fix those issues during kind of your time as executive president?
As far as communicating with the student body? Yeah, so I think one of the really unique things with that is I'm coming in to serving as student senate president, in the same time there's a new president of the university coming in. And there's the room for fear, like, oh, you want everything to be balanced just right, and You want everyone to be coordinating with each other
Yes.
well, and you don't want the student body to be left in the dark on anything. But I think it's even more important now that we have a new Senate coming in. We have a new president coming in. Let's create that connection. Let's build that network between the Student Senate, representatives of the student body, you guys,
Yes.
and the higher administration. So if we want better communication, if we want better connections between the students and between that administration and the faculty, genuinely all the staff, then I think that's important that we have that strong tie between the Senate and that administration.
Alrighty, good to hear.
Yeah.
So for you is kind of, what are some of your goals you hope to accomplish during your year as president of Student Senate?
You know, it's interesting. I've been thinking about this over the last few weeks, and I really do feel as if this last Student Senate with my friend and yours, Zachary Shear, as our president, he just did so many great things for the student body, and so many people felt very represented. But going into this next year, this whole new academic year, I want to very much continue a bunch of the same things that he's been emphasizing between student networking, between clubs. I want to emphasize that representation that the student is sovereign. You know, the power that I have, whatever power that is, that authority and that influence. We
Yes.
call it influence because that really very much is what it is. That's you guys. That's the student body. I'm just here to stand in for you. I'm a mouthpiece. And so what I want to emphasize is every student getting involved in Senate. Whether that comes from running for a position or coming Tuesday nights to feel heard in that way, or genuinely just, hey, reach out to me. Reach out to your constituents. When you see me around, be like, hey, Prez, I don't know about this. I don't know how I feel about this, or this is my concern about this or that.
Yes.
That's important.
Okay.
And that very much is the kind of, it's an environment creation. So, you know, you asked what are goals. I want to create that environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty good goal for the year, though.
I hope so.
Well, I got one final question for you.
Yeah.
Is kind of tying back into that last point you mentioned about students being involved in Senate. How can students kind of get more involved in Student Senate? What do they have to do?
Yeah.
What can they do?
Oh, I'm so glad. I love any chance I get to be able to talk about that. I'm very happy about that. But as you know, we just finished the election this last Tuesday. That wrapped up. But that being said, they don't have to wait a whole another year to run for a position because we have fall elections.
Yes.
Like first or second week of this coming academic year, we haven't picked the date yet, but there's going to be elections again.
Yeah.
Run for one. If you're into athletes or if you're into athletic affairs, if you're into religion life and you want to serve in ministry and you want to have a voice for constituents from those individual groups, run for those positions. And I can't encourage people enough to do that. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who are like, yeah, I'm not interested in politics, I'm not interested in this or that whatsoever. But I feel so happy to have that community on Senate Tuesday nights. And so where I'm coming from is, if you do that and you commit to that, you're gonna love it. And I think that every individual student can come to, we have 3 meetings for the rest of this year. Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m., come see what we're about, come see what we do. Beginning of next year, run for a position.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, Aidan, for sitting down with me today and talking about your plans for Student Senate in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a great time.
That is it for this edition of Eagle's Eye. Be sure to follow us across social media at AUTV. I'm Katelyn Meeks, and thanks for watching.